I've been doing a lot of mods recently to my 2008 FJ Cruiser, and it seems like most of them have pertained to the electrical wiring in some form or fashion. And it's not going to stop there with these electrical style mods. So in this video, what we're going to do is we are going to beef up underneath the hood our electrical grid with one mod, or I guess you could say 7 mods. And you guessed it, we're going to be doing the Big 7 upgrade, changing out all of the major power wires for some bigger, beefier ones to prepare for all of these electrical and power style upgrades. Now, we were so fortunate to be able to have this shipped over from jeepcables.com. However, I know what you're thinking. Colby, this is a Toyota. What in the world would a Jeep company have to do with Toyota? Well, actually, they have more than just Jeep stuff now because they're shifting over to Big 7 kits. So I'll leave all the links in the description for you so you can go check out to see if they have your make and model for these Big 7 kits. Now, let's open up this box and let's see what all came in this Big 7 kit. And I want to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Big 7 Kits for partnering with us on this video. All right, as you can see, this is proudly handcrafted in the USA. So let's get into and look into what all comes in here. Now, I got a t-shirt with mine. Yours is probably going to come with a t-shirt unless you want one, but got a pretty cool little t-shirt with the Big 7 Kit stuff on there. And here's kind of what everything looks like. We got a bag that's got some components in it. And on the bag, you know, they got FJ Cruiser Colby for the FJ Cruiser, and then just kind of the different stuff that's going on in there. Inside of this bag are little welcome cards and stuff like that, and of course some awesome stickers. And then they have some of the other little components that we're going to need here. A couple covers for the battery terminals, the fuse, it's a few different types of fuses, ends or little covers that are going to go and attach to the fuses here on either side, and some military grade battery terminals here. Moving back over to the box, you can see we have not 1, not 2, not 3, 4, 5, 6, but 7 total wires. And these aren't just any type of wires. These are some giant gauge wires. I don't exactly know what gauge wires these are. I'll leave it in the description when I figure that out later. But they are pretty beefy. And here's the best part about this Big 7 kit. There's no real instructions on how to do this because their wires are labeled with what end goes where. So you can see this is for the alternator, and then this end is going to go to the fuse, which is this boy right here. And then picking up another wire, we have another red one, so this is power stuff. We have the wire that goes to the starter, or the terminal that goes to the starter, and then this end is going to go to the battery positive post. And just picking up a black one so you can see what's going on here with those as well. We got the engine block on this end, and that's going to connect to the body or the frame from here. So now let's get all of these wires out and let's get them diagrammed and laid out exactly where they're going to go and how it's going to be set up, so that way it makes installation maybe a little bit easier for us. So we got all the wires laid out here, and I went ahead and put some labels on them as well, just because I'm a visual learner, and hopefully you are too since you're watching a YouTube video about it. But we got the battery terminals kind of set up over here like they kind of would be in the FJ, and then we have them running to the different locations. Like here's the power distribution center, or your main fuse box under the hood. We have the fender ground, the fuse that's provided. Here's the starter coming from the battery positive terminal. We got the engine blocks with the negative grounds here, alternator from the fuse that's coming from that positive battery terminal. And then last but not least, we have the negative ground for the frame and body. Now, I really do think this is going to be super helpful for us, so that way we can kind of do one wire at a time and then do a little compare and contrast as we're taking these wires out of the truck and then installing the new ones. Now, my engine bay and power setup might look a little bit different than yours because I have done some stuff I did a video about this auxiliary fuse box install that's actually just double-sided sticky taped to the lid of our PDC, and this is actually a cutting board. Now what we're going to have to do is, we got a lot of wire looms and we have some starters and alternators to find and start stripping the wires out of this thing. But the first thing we're going to do is just going to take out the battery, because it's going to make it a whole heck of a lot easier. And then I'm probably also going to disconnect all of this stuff right here and just maybe move it out of the way and tuck it out of the way over there. All right, look at this mess. So yeah, we got a little corrosion going on there underneath the battery. Might need to take care of that. So we've got the battery removed. As you can see, it's going to give us a lot of working room here. I also disconnected my little DIY auxiliary fuse box here, and I had to take off the lid. I also had to unscrew and adjust this a little bit because some of the wires I had nice and tucked underneath here. So we had to get them out. But now let's go ahead and start finding some things and replacing some wires.
So this is the main wire bundle that's heading down into the engine bay. It consists of the alternator, power, and starter, and it's held together by this little bracket on the side. And of course, it's taped up and wire loomed, and we're going to have to just cut back all of the wire loom and all of the tape in order to gain access to the alternator wire that we just saw there. And as we're working our way down, we can see that I've disconnected a few little sensor wires and peeled back some of the loom. That's the fuse box sensor wire that comes from the alternator. And this is a slow and tedious process, but it's important to be careful when you're using a little knife like that, a little X-Acto knife, that you are very, very aware that there are smaller wires that don't have as thick of sheaths on them. So just be careful. Now down here, there is this bracket looking harness thing that we're going to have to detach in order to gain access to peeling back more of the wire loom, because there is a big bundle of wires that is going through that little harness, and we just need to peel it back and gain access to it. So all you have to do is just unscrew it from the bottom side of the alternator. It just gives you a little bit more finagling and wiggle room to move some things around. You can see there are multiple wires that are running through here, and it just makes it easier taking that off to be able to get them out. Here we have the alternator. There's two kind of wires and plugs that go into it, the power that's on the left and a little sensor that's on the right. The alternator power has a little gray cap that sits right on top of it. It's easy to pop off. And then all you need is a little 10 millimeter ratchet to get off that wire. We've got the alternator wire removed, and now it's just a matter of finagling this harness and being able to manipulate it into a way that we can gain access to the other wires within this wiring harness.
We got some progress made on this wire loom down here, and we've got into this bracket, but unfortunately I can't quite get any further. I got the alternator wire kind of popped off a little bit right there, just to have and give us a little bit more access to the wire loom. So that means we had to do something, and you can kind of see exactly what I mean, because yours is going to look a little bit different under here than mine, because I'm missing my little mud flaps, side flap, fender flaps, whatever you want to call them. You can see they've dry rotted away, and I need to get some more. Just haven't got a chance to. But check this out. It gives you way easier access. And there's the little wire loom that we are following. And you can see this is the starter right here. And then the starter wires that were, let's see if I can get old camera boy in here. You can see right down here on the starter wire, here is, that's actually the engine block. So this big boy is the engine block ground that's going to that nut right there. And then the starter power wire is right above it. Let's see, there's one of those little caps right there. That little gray cap is where the power is going to the starter. So I'm going to continue to just kind of disconnect this little loom. And then I think we're going to be able to kind of check and deal with some of the fuse box stuff. Just wanted to show you something else I started doing. I started just making a little list of different little screws that I'm taking out, because normally I just throw them in a bucket and just figure it out from there. But some of these are different sizes. Just want to make sure everything goes back. So just kind of being a nerd and labeling things. So I can't figure out how to open up this dang harness. It's like a little bracket that just kind of holds all the wires together. So it's holding the alternator power right there wire. It's holding the alternator little clippy-doo guy right here that goes to the fuse box. It's also got this little bundle right here, which is the starter power wire, the engine block ground, as well as the ground that goes from the engine block to the frame, and then another little, maybe a sensor wire or something that we'll have to disconnect from the starter over here. So I think what I'm going to try to do, and here you can see if I go back a little bit, you can see that bundle of wires right there that's going through that little bracket. I think what we're going to do is I'm going to unplug everything and unscrew all of these things, and then just pull the whole bracket out. And that should be easier than having to try to wedge them out and then feed them back through the bracket. And I'm just going to start unscrewing things. So this is going to be super hard to show. That little screw right there is the ground that's on the engine block. So that is a 12 millimeter. I'm going to get that off right now. There you go. You can see I took it off. Now I'm going to get off the little sensor plug, as well as that gray cover and the plug that goes to that starter right there. All right, there's the starter little power thing. And you can see I disengaged the clip right there. It's got a little tab on the bottom that you got to pull up. So now I think everything is disconnected, and I'm just going to pull this harness up. All right, now we got everything disconnected from this harness down here, and I just kind of tucked the wires up so that way it'd be easier to pull. And then it's just a matter of pulling this whole little skidooty out just like that, and I'll lay it on the floor so you can see better. All right, here's all that crazy situation that we were dealing with. So all of this stuff was on this end, and then this was all the stuff that was going to the starter and the ground. So like this wire right here was the engine block ground, and then this little wire that's kind of connected to it comes all the way back here, and this was the end that is going to be the frame ground. Here was the little sensor connector for the starter, and this was a starter wire as well. This was an alternator sensor. This went to the fuse. This black and blue stripe that's still attached to the lug here is the other end of the starter, and we can see the blue stripe right there. Show me the blue stripe. There it is, you can see it. And then this was the ground wire that was connected to the other lug. It's still up there. I wanted to take a second to kind of talk to you about this little wire harness that we found, and looking closer at it, I can kind of see how it works a little bit better. So it's actually in two pieces. That part bolts to I think right around where the alternator is. And then this is like just a fancy wire loom that all the wires were threaded through. It is really brittle plastic, and you can see this is metal. And when you're opening, this might be good for like future reference. When you're opening it up, it has these little tabs that are on the top, and then a couple on the bottom that just simply, you just push down, lift it up right there, and then it opens, and then you can gain access to the wires. But I don't see, and you can see it's already kind of breaking right there, but I don't see how it disconnects down here at the bottom. I think it might just like pop off. But now the only thing that was missing, you're like, where's the alternator power? Let me show you. So the alternator power wire is right here. And this alternator power wire makes things difficult for us. So this alternator power wire comes from the alternator down there. You can see right there. And it comes up through the side of the fuse box right here, and then attaches to the top of the terminal right here. here's where we have an issue. This then goes through this fuse. This is the alternator fuse, I think 120 amp alternator fuse, but that's an issue because we're going to be using our own little fuse setup here within our system. So what we're going to have to do, boys and girls, is this is the power that's going to go into the fuse box. We have to change this one out, and the only way to get in here and get access to it all is we got to take off the trays of this fuse box. Now, this thing comes in two pieces, this tray, and it is a booger to get out. So you have one section here, and you have the other section here. It's kind of like a yin-yang looking thing. It's two pieces. And it's held together in this box. But in order to get it out, you have to pry two little tabs that are here, two little tabs that are here and here. But I'm also going to have to cut back this loom and cut some zip ties, as well as some loom that's over here on the other side as well. So that way it gives us some room to pull it out. So let me get on that. So this feels near impossible to do, and I still haven't been able to figure it out yet. I've got my dad come and give me a little help. Thanks, Pop. All right, we have the tray out. Okay, I'm not proud of what I'm about to say, but we boogered this thing up because we could not for the life of us get these clips to detach from the tray. And so you can see how they're all boogered. That's because, yep, we drilled through each of these little spots where the tabs are. So one's there, and you can even see the kind of the hole down in there that we went through, and then there and there. Luckily, after we're kind of looking on the other side, these little channels is where the bit came out, and so it didn't really damage any of the wiring components. And then we were able to just pull it out from there. So from here, this is our wire right here that we are replacing. My little lug head fell off, so this wire is going to go to the positive battery terminal, and it goes from here underneath, and then it connects right there. So I'm going to take that one off, and then this might be our first wire that we replace here. Now again, to reiterate, the people at Big 7 Kit said that this post is going to be unused because our battery positive to PDC wire is going to give the fuse box power through here, and then we're skipping this by using their own alternator fuse. There we go, first wire in, PDC, snaked it under and through the little gray piece here under the tray, and then out that little nook right there, and then hopefully that should give us plenty of room to attach to the positive battery terminal. All right, so we have a small little issue here, literally a small issue. Because of the girthiness of these terminal lugs, this is the bolt that goes on the engine block, and unfortunately it just is a little too short. We could probably make it work and bend things and kind of make it fit and get it in there. But it's just making it really hard and difficult. I've been trying here for a second. I can't quite get it to sit in there. So what I did is I just went over to Ace Hardware and got basically the identical-ish one, but a little bit longer, and it's stainless steel. It's an M8 1.25, if that helps. And it's just a little bit longer. I even picked up another one that's even longer than that, just in case this one doesn't work. But I test fitted it already, and it seems to give me just a little bit more to grab, and then I can just cinch it down. I am having a hard dang time doing this, so I even said I wasn't going to do what I had to do, but I didn't want to have to bend them, but they're so big, it's just hard to work with, is what she said. And I'm just having a hard time getting them to, one, stay together, and then trying to thread them through. So I'm going to wait on those to the end because I'm getting frustrated, and I'll just move on to the next thing. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and attach this frame attachment. It literally just goes right there on the chassis. So let's do that. All right, there's the body frame. that's going to go attach to the engine block down there, and we'll, like I said, we'll do that last. Super easy one right here. Fender ground to the negative battery terminal. I might end up having to find another negative spot depending on the spacing here. I might maybe try to do that one, that ground, or maybe try to find a different one somewhere, but we're just going to kind of connect it for right now and see what we need to do later. So here's the battery positive end of the starter wire, and the starter end is tucked right in there. So not exactly part of the big 7 kit, but it was something that I unplugged and I re-wire loomed. And this is the, what do you call this? The sensor kit or harness? I don't know. But anyway, this plugs into the fuse box right there. This goes down to the starter. This goes to the alternator. So I'm gonna get that put back in. All right, now we're gonna tackle this crazy thing, going from the alternator to the fuse, and then from the fuse to the positive battery terminal. I'm gonna get it kind of set up in here and mess around with it and see kind of what it looks like before I show you what the final product is, and then I'll give you kind of a rundown of what I did. I'm gonna probably have to fiddle around with it and play and see exactly how it's going to fit when the battery gets in here, but here's kind of what I'm thinking. So the alternator wire connected right there to the alternator power, loops up here, and then it's going to sit in this little nook, or maybe I might slide this over and then put this here. This is, again, just cutting board, but it looks like it should fit there. And then got our fuse in, and then the fuse loops around to the battery positive. Now I'm going to put the lugs on just so we can kind of like see and get an idea of how everything's going to connect. All right, we finally got the 2 engine block wires attached. I had to use that longer Ace Hardware bolt, and now I got the battery put back in. This is not ideal. It looks kind of crazy, but I just want to try and crank up the car. Got everything plugged in where it needs to go, and I'm going to come back in after I know that it actually cranks and everything works. All right, y'all, moment of truth. I haven't done this yet, so you're seeing it live as I'm seeing it. So fingers crossed for me if you haven't already. Here we go. That's a good sign. A little worried there for a second. All right, lights work. Lights work. These work. Those work. That's good. These work. Good. All right. Good deal. I was worried that that wouldn't work. That's been my luck with this install. All right, so now that we have a fully functioning car, well, not quite fully, but now that we have a fully electrically functioning car, I'm going to go through and tidy all this stuff up, put everything back together, and then the next shot you're going to see is the final product, and hopefully you like it. Ooh, there it is, y'all. We are done finally with this install. I used 872 zip ties just to kind of keep everything together and away from hot stuff and belts and all that. And it came out pretty good. Let me show you where I ended up having to change some stuff. So I ended up going the alternator wire to the fuse. You can see there's the alternator. It comes around and it actually loops around through here behind the battery in between the fuse box, and then it comes up right here. And then I went fuse and then looped around to the battery terminal here. For the negative side, the ground wire normally would have gone right here, but I moved it down to that one right there on the inside. You can see right there on the inside of the fender, and it just loops around, and it actually goes to the far side. Let me kind of show you here. So it loops around and it goes to the far side, and then this is the one that comes from the engine block. So it goes all the way down here, through there, and then all the way to the back. I still got to put the wheel back on, but I wanted to just kind of show you. I did something else too. I actually shifted the frame wire from the engine block from here to here. There was another spot, and because it just has this big, you can see it's like a big rainbow in there. And so it was an even a bigger rainbow, just kind of getting in the way. And then, yeah, everything else is just kind of zip tied and tidied up. So I'm gonna get this wheel back on and then we'll close out this video with some final thoughts. All right, y'all, it has been about a week since, actually a little bit over a week, since I've done the big 7 kit to the old FJ Cruiser. I wanna give you a few final thoughts, some recommendations if you're thinking about doing this, and just my overall feelings about the whole thing. So a question I think I might get is, was this install worth it? Hindsight's 2020, as always. Looking back on it, I think I would still go through with the install if I knew that it would be successful. It was very, very difficult for a couple of those things, and not having a jack to lift it up to be able to get underneath the car was a pretty big obstacle. However, knowing the strategies that I had to do ahead of time to figure it out probably would have mitigated some of that long, arduous and strenuous effort trying to do the fuse box situation and also the engine and the frame to engine block ground. If I could find another spot on the engine block to attach those 2 wires, it might have been a little bit easier instead of doubling up on one, but that's just something I didn't know or have any resources kind of figure out how to do it. So the next question I think somebody might have would be like, who is this for? If you're planning on doing any kind of overlanding and running a bunch of lights, refrigerators, potentially doing a dual battery kit, running a lot of power to the back of the FJ or back of your car and or SUV, and having a lot of power going through that system, it's always better to increase the diameter or the gauge of the wire to allow for all of that. I think of it as kind of like a highway system. It's better to have a 6-lane highway for a lot of traffic than a 2-lane dirt road for the same amount of traffic. But overall, like I said, the install was a little rough, but I'm very, very pleased with how everything came out. I really like this little shirt too right there. I got Big 7 Kits, real comfortable. Thank you guys for sending that over. And again, I want to give a huge shout out to Big 7 Kits, formerly known as Jeep Cables, for sending this whole kit over and trusting me with the install for their FJ Cruiser. And I hope you guys go down, link to the description, check out either what they can provide for you with either an FJ Cruiser or any other kind of vehicles, but make sure you go check them out and send them a huge thank you as well. So thank you guys again so much for watching me rig my ride for my adventure, one mod at a time.